All right, let's just get right into it. If you've ever watched Attack on Titan, you know there's one piece of technology that completely steals the show: the omnidirectional mobility gear. I mean, come on. It's this insane gas-powered setup that lets soldiers fly through the air and take down giant titans. It's absolutely breathtaking to watch, but it also makes you ask a pretty big question.
For real? Could something like this actually work? Is there any kind of real-world science behind these completely wild physics-defying moves? Well, it's a question that fans, physicists, and yeah, even game developers have been totally obsessed with. And today, we're going to break it all down, from the basic forces at play to the actual code that brings it to life.
You can just feel the energy in that, can't you? For anyone who doesn't know, it's German for "they are the prey and we are the hunters." And honestly, it just perfectly captures the hype. Because this gear isn't just about getting from point A to point B, it's about turning a regular person into an absolute apex predator. That feeling is exactly what makes it so cool. So, to even begin to understand how ODM gear could work, we gotta start with the basic physics of swinging. Let's just forget about the gas canisters and the swords for a minute and talk about what really happens when you hook onto something and start moving in a big arc. Okay, so the hero of this whole story is something called centripetal force. The name literally means center-seeking. Now, this isn't some brand new magical force. It's just the name we give to any force, like, say, the tension in a cable that's constantly pulling you inward. It's what keeps you from flying off in a straight line and forces you into that curve. And this force has a major weakness, and that weakness is speed. See, this little formula tells us that the force needed to keep you swinging gets way, way bigger the faster you go. To put it simply, if you double your speed, you need a whopping 4 times the force pulling on that cable to stay in the same arc. You can just imagine the insane strain that puts on the gear, the cables, and whatever poor building you've hooked into. And hey, this isn't some new age idea we just cooked up. We're talking Sir Isaac Newton himself. He's the one who laid all this out centuries ago. So every time you see Captain Levi whip around a corner, you're basically watching a really, really dramatic demonstration of classical mechanics. Okay, so we've got the theory down. But how do you take that textbook physics and turn it into something you can actually use, something you can control? Well, let's jump into a whole different world now, the world of game development, where physics isn't just about being right, it has to be fun. This is the exact problem that a Unity developer who goes by Rogue Sleipnir ran into. They wanted to build a game that didn't just look like you were using ODM gear, but one that felt like it. And trying to capture that smooth, fast orbital flight in a game engine, man, that is a huge challenge. And you can kind of hear the frustration in their own words here. All the simple tutorials out there just didn't work. Most of them use a simple tool called a spring joint. You can basically think of it like a rubber band that just pulls you towards the anchor point. It pulls you, yeah, but it doesn't give you that amazing, satisfying swing. And this right here just lays it all out perfectly. A simple grapple is just a straight pull, A to B. But the ODM gear, oh no, that needs a real physics simulation. You need one force to pull you in and a whole separate force that lets you swing around that point, all while letting the player actually control where they're going. It's just a way more complicated beast. So, if the easy, off-the-shelf stuff wasn't going to cut it, how did this developer finally crack the code? Well, the answer wasn't to throw physics out the window. It was to lean into it even harder by breaking the movement down into its most basic parts. And here it is, the beautiful, elegant solution. Instead of one force, the developer simulated 2. First, you have the tension force. That's our old friend, centripetal force, pulling the player straight towards the anchor. But then, and this is the secret sauce, you add a tangential force. This is the one that pushes the player sideways, creating and controlling that awesome orbital swing. It's the two working together that makes the magic happen. But this is where things got really, really tough. I mean, it's one thing to program a computer to make something orbit. It's a whole other thing to let a human control that orbit with a joystick. How do you make sure that pressing left actually makes you swing left, especially when you're flying and flipping and changing direction every single second? And this slide shows the absolute genius of the solution. The first try was to calculate a new axis of rotation every single frame, but that was a disaster. The controls would just flip out and feel totally random. The breakthrough moment was this: establish the axis for the orbit just once at the exact moment the hook connects. Then from that point on, the player's input just rotates that original axis, and boom, the controls suddenly feel stable, predictable, and fun, no matter how crazy you're flying.
So, now that we've looked at the physics and the code, let's bring it all back home and settle one of the biggest fan debates out there by connecting this amazing fictional tech to another, very famous swinger.
I mean, this is the ultimate question, right? They both swing through cities on cables. But are they really the same thing? Fans have broken this down for years, and the answer is a big, resounding no. Not at all. This chart just lays out the key differences so clearly. First off, propulsion. ODM Gear uses gas to blast you forward. Spidey? He's all momentum and pure super strength. Then you have the anchor point. The gear hooks in at the waist, which is your body's center of gravity, making you way more stable. Spider-Man shoots webs from his wrists. And maybe the biggest difference, ODM users need their hands free for their swords, which is why the whole system is built around the waist. For Spidey, his hands are the system.
So at the end of the day, it's like comparing apples and oranges. Spider-Man's web swinging is all about pure, beautiful traversal. But the ODM gear, that's a combat system. It's designed for quick, brutal, aggressive repositioning, so you can get in close and land that one perfect Titan-killing blow.
Of course, look, we have to admit it, there are plenty of things about the ODM gear that make absolutely zero sense. Like, how do those hooks just dig into solid stone and then pop right out? Is that tiny bit of gas really powerful enough to do all that? And as so many fans have pointed out, stopping that fast would create G-forces that would, well, not be good for you. So what's the real answer? It works because it looks awesome, it runs on the rule of cool.
So, from Isaac Newton's laws all the way to some really clever coding, we've seen how a completely fantastic idea can actually be grounded in some real science, even if it needs a little bit of that anime magic to work. And that brings me to one last question for you. Now that you know what it takes to build a system like this, what piece of fictional tech do you think game developers should try to create next? I mean, think about it. The possibilities are pretty much endless.